Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. I hope that all of you have had a great week so far, and I hope that you're looking forward to a happy and healthy weekend. Students, in this class we are looking at IELTS reading about mountains of ice. This reading is from the academic version of the IELTS exam, but for general IELTS students, your section 3 of the reading test is very similar, so stay tuned. Now, this is a members chat class, which means that only members can put comments into the chat. In order to become a member of the channel, click the join button next to the subscribe button. We will have a listening class coming up after this one, which will be a subscribers chat class. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free, and it's a great way to help your IELTS studies move along. Welcome, Carolina, our chat moderator. Great to have you in the class. Good morning, Elizabeth. Nice to have you with me. Yes, indeed, it is early where I am. It's 6:30 in the morning. For many of you, I'm like time traveling to the past, right? For many people, it's mid or near the end of the day even. Students, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS reading materials. You can go there. Check that out. For the general IELTS, you can visit gieltshelp.com. Both of those websites have tons and tons of resources to help you improve your English and your communication for the IELTS exam. This is the academic website here at aehelp.com. You got this big red button that's just right above my head there. Click that. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. We're an IDP affiliate. We are a British Council partner, an IELTS test registration center, and we help thousands of students every month to succeed on their IELTS test. These are all our past students here, beautiful people who have achieved their band scores. For general IELTS, it's gieltshelp.com. It's this big red button here above my head. Click that, and you're good to go. And you can use the code DANCE9 that's still active for you from this week to get that 10% discount on the website. And you can get our apps and link the apps to the websites. Academic IELTS Help, General IELTS Help. Check those out. Instagram is IELTS_AEHelp and GIELTS Help. Instagram has reels, vocabulary, lots of useful information there for you. And then if you have any questions about the reading, about IELTS, just send me an email. Adrian@aehelp.com, admin@aehelp.com. And of course, Amazon does have our books, so you can search for our exam books on Amazon. AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS. Students, again, lots of live classes for you each week. Right now we've got reading followed by listening. Tomorrow we'll have speaking part 2 and speaking part 3. Sevda, good to see you in the class. Romelia Habibe Cahyani. Nice to see so many people here and ready to learn. All right, when you have a minute, if you haven't done so yet, check out this video. It's a good one. There you go. All right, reading strategies. Let's do it. So let's get into today's reading. First, of course, is read the title. And if there is a picture, take a good look at it. Okay, so help your brain think about the information before you read it. Okay. So today we're circling back to our first exam in the book, and we've got this lovely picture here and this title, Mountains of Ice. Here it is. Mountains of Ice. There's the title. So before you do any reading, before you look at any of the questions, you should very quickly think about, okay, what is a mountain of ice? What kind of information will they give us about mountains of ice? And what do I know about mountains of ice? So, members, what are mountains of ice, and what would an author write about mountains of ice? Why would that be an interesting topic for us to read? What is it exactly? Start to visualize. So you should, as you get this passage on the IELTS, you should definitely see yourself in the picture as soon as possible. So, you know, we should see Elizabeth here climbing this mountain of ice. Okay, it's your ice climbing pick there, Elizabeth. We're going to give you some long hair, and we're going to give you an adventurer's hat there with a little feather in your hat there. Okay, so you're climbing up that mountain. All right. Angel says they are melting due to climate change. Okay, so they're melting into the ocean due to climate change. Yeah, Angel, I think that's possible. Now, think simple as well. So, Cahyani says this is the tip of the iceberg. So this part here is just the tip. There could be more iceberg underneath the water, which is probably a good inference. Cahyani, yes, ice floats, and as we know, some of that ice is above the water, some of that is under the water. Lidya says the formation of the ice and the natural disasters associated with ice. Absolutely. Okay, Elizabeth likes the picture of her climbing this ice mountain with the adventurer's hat. That's great. I was hoping that you would enjoy that, Elizabeth. Okay, so we're thinking about that right now. Students, to be a little bit more concrete, to be a little bit more accurate, what you want to do is you want to think about what, why, how. So, for instance, like, what is a mountain of ice, or let's say iceberg? Okay, it is a large chunk of glacier that broke away at the north or south hemisphere and is floating in the ocean. Okay, so you should think about the what question importantly. So what is it, right? So it's good to not just have random thoughts, but to have focused thoughts. So what is a mountain of ice, also called an iceberg? It's a large chunk of glacier. Okay, notice the word glacier. If that's a new word, write it down. Okay, glacier that broke away at the north or south hemisphere. If the word hemisphere is a new word for you, write it down. Okay, hemisphere, basically when you're looking at the world, okay, the world can be divided by this imaginary line in the middle called the equator, and then this would be the north hemisphere, and this would be the south hemisphere of planet Earth. Okay, that center line there is called the equator. Okay, equator. Northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. Okay, for those of you in the southern hemisphere, it's winter right now. For those of you in the northern hemisphere, it is summer right now. So that's what an iceberg is. Why do they happen? So why do icebergs happen? Okay. Well, the simple answer here is rising temperatures, global warming causes the ice to melt and break away from the glacial sheets in the north and south, right? So they break away. All right. And then I would also ask the how question. What is the how question? What kind of a how question would I ask here? Okay, so the why question is why do they happen? And I would also ask a how question. What is the right question? Thinking about the right questions in the IELTS excuse me, is often the best way to think about the right answers. Okay? Lydia says how it forms. I think that's an okay how question, Lydia. I would ask a different how questions. How the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg happens, Cahyani. I think that's an okay question. I would ask a different how question. Humans are quite egocentric, which means we love ourselves. Okay, so I would probably ask, how do they impact humans? So how do icebergs impact humans? Like, why do we care about them, right? And then you can probably come up with a good answer and figure out that the script probably has some information on this, right? So how do they impact humans? They are dangerous for people on boats. People can, or boats can sink, ships, let's say, can sink when they hit an iceberg, right? Like the famous ship Titanic, which maybe many of you will know because Netflix really started to promote the Titanic movie again. So if you have Netflix, they're playing Titanic. They brought it back. Cahyani, they brought it back. Titanic is back. Okay. I know that Cahyani's a big Titanic fan, so good news. Netflix has Titanic, the movie. All right. So that's how they are important for humans, for people. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, when you see the title and then you see the picture, you can think about it critically. What, why, how. You can picture yourself standing on the iceberg. It helps to engage the text, to be an active reader. And then you can also look at the questions to see if you can get some more help. Here, questions numbers 1 to 5. It's a yes, no, not given. It's like a true, false, not given. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in reading passage 1? These questions, don't read them before the passage because you don't know which ones are not given and confusing, okay? And then you have a fill in the blank summary completion. Okay, this type of question you should read because this will all be in the passage somewhere. So you should skim over this nice and fast before you read the passage. Now, students, members, this is a reading class. So read with me. Okay, here we go. The sinking of the Titanic. Because there was no international group which monitored icebergs in 1912, it was the sole responsibility of the something to make sure there were no icebergs in the ship's path. Am I reading a little bit quickly? I'm doing that on purpose. Okay. To increase your reading speed, everybody, you sometimes have to push yourself to read a little bit faster than you can. So if I'm reading a little bit faster than you can, that's good. Now read aloud. So not just in your head, but hear yourself, just like me. Okay. We're going to keep going with this speed. So just follow with me as best as you can. All right. The chief reason the iceberg wasn't detected was the something of the sea that night. Because of this, there were no waves crashing against the iceberg, making it difficult to spot. The captain swerved, but the iceberg scraped the side of the ship, ripping the something of the ship. Things should have been fine nevertheless, but the watertight compartments were poorly designed, and once the water was in a few compartments, it was able to something into all the others. This was a major engineering defect, which resulted in the eventual sinking. Okay. Again, if that was a little bit fast, if you had a little bit of a tough time, don't worry about it. That's the idea. Okay. I'm building your fluency. Okay. All right. Here we go. Complete the sentences below. Again, these ones you can read. All of the information is somewhere in the passage. So number 10, let's do this. To avoid a Titanic-like disaster in the future, something formed the International Ice Patrol, or IIP. The IIP's goal is to track the relevant data and something of icebergs. Number 12. The Canadian Space Agency bounces something off the water to measure iceberg movement. 13. This data renders large-scale maritime disasters something. Okay. So those are the questions. Now, let's read the passage, everybody, and we'll get a clear idea of what are these icebergs and maybe some information that matches with what we were thinking. Okay. Now, for the reading audio in our exam books, so exam books 1 and 2, that reading audio is in your My Student account, everybody. So I want you to read with this British person this time, and then you're going to read after yourselves, members. Okay, so pay attention, read carefully, read aloud, visualize, see yourself. Okay, so we're going to hop back to the websites here. Okay, we're jumping to the academic website. Again, for all of you watching, you can join the premium version of the website by clicking this big red button above my head there. It's absolutely worth it. That way you can access all of these practice exams and lesson materials. You go to your My Student account, and then here you click on IELTS audio CDs. Now in the IELTS audio CDs, because this is the first test, it will be CD 1, track 1. So it's this one here. Okay, so I'm going to play the audio. Let's read together. Here we go, everybody.
Icebergs. The word iceberg derives from the Dutch word ijsberg, meaning ice mountain. Icebergs are sections of glaciers that are broken off during the warm summer months and float freely in open water. Icebergs are typically found in open water, predominantly around Greenland and Antarctica. The characteristics of icebergs, their historical impact, and the methods we employ today to monitor them are important topics. The reason icebergs exist is because of the difference between the density of ice and the density of salt water. The density of ice is approximately 920 kilograms per cubic meter, while the density of salt water is approximately 1,025 kilograms per cubic meter. Because ice is less dense than water, it floats. However, because the difference in densities is so small, only about 10% of the iceberg is visible above the ocean's surface. The rest of the iceberg hides below the water. This is the origin of the familiar expression, tip of the iceberg, used to describe a situation where only part of the problem is noticeable. Icebergs range in height from 1 meter all the way up to over 75 meters above sea level. The height measures the visible portion of the iceberg. The tallest icebergs may have a total height of over 650 meters, including their underwater portion. The largest ever recorded was 168 meters above the water, meaning the entire height of this floater was likely greater than 1,500 meters. For reference, that is twice the height of most skyscrapers. Different sized icebergs had different name classifications. The smallest icebergs are called brash ice. The next category up in size is called growlers, and the ones after that are called bergibits. For whatever reason, after those three classes, the people in charge of naming the icebergs got a little less creative. The next classes simply ranged from small to very large. Icebergs can be massive objects. Very large icebergs can weigh more than 200,000 tons. The largest iceberg ever recorded was over 30,000 square kilometers in area. Again, for reference, that is the approximate size of the country of Belgium. The most famous iceberg in history is undoubtedly the one which eventually sunk the English ship Titanic off the coast of Newfoundland in 1912. At that point in time, there was no central group which monitored iceberg activity. Ships relied on lookouts to spot the icebergs. For the Titanic, the unfortunate attitude was that any iceberg big enough to do damage to the ship would be seen in time. This attitude was, of course, catastrophically wrong. The main reason it failed was the remarkable calmness of the water that ill-fated night. The easiest way to spot an iceberg from afar is to see waves crashing up against it. But on the night the Titanic sank, there were no such helpful waves. For all intents and purposes, the iceberg was invisible until it was too late. The captain swerved at the last minute, but as the side of the ship scraped across the iceberg, the hull of the ocean liner tore open. Things still may have been fine had it not been for the poorly designed watertight compartments. It turns out that when too many compartments were affected, the water was simply able to spill over to all the other compartments. This was an engineering defect that contributed to the Titanic's sinking. After the disaster of the Titanic, maritime authorities realized that a system needed to be put into place to monitor icebergs so that such a catastrophe would not be repeated. By 1914, the International Ice Patrol, IIP, was formed. Their purpose was to track all of the relevant meteorological and oceanographical data and to chart the movement of all major icebergs. Today, technology is used to track iceberg data. The Canadian Space Agency has multiple radar satellites which send microwaves off the ocean surface and record the reflection to track the movement of the icebergs. Maritime vessels have access to this information in real time, which allows them to know exactly where any local icebergs are at any moment, meaning that a repeat of the Titanic disaster is virtually impossible.
All right, good job, everybody, for reading. Let me just stop the audio there on the website. And now we'll read again. So I want you to have a really clear idea about this text. So we'll do a little bit more reading here. But we're going to let the members read. And while they do that, I'm going to give a little bit of feedback and strategy. So log into your My Student account and go to the Student Partner Speaking here for reading, everybody. So we're going to get some volunteers here. Carolina, if you can maybe put the, yeah, there you go. Thanks, Carolina. So Carolina put the instructions into the chat there for you. The first step is to go to aehelp.com and then click on the Student Partner Speaking. Once you're in the Student Partner Speaking, then you can send me a message. And if you are a channel member and you're watching and you want to do a bit of reading and discussion, then go ahead and send me a message. You're going to see me in here as Master. And you can just click on the little blue envelope that's beside my handle and then write, I want to volunteer or I want to try. Okay, I can see Angel here. One of our members has sent me a message. Constellation, Lydia, good. Okay, let's start with Angel here. So Angel, are you ready? It's not a shout. Are you ready? All right. All right.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Angel. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing quite well also. Thank you for asking. Okay, Angel. So were you able to read the text with this British person, man, while we were going along? Angel, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to read the text with this British person?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
No difference for me.
It wasn't too fast, right?
A little bit, but no difference. We can try it.
Okay. Yeah, so in the IELTS exam, this is just a quick FYI for your information. You should be able to read the text in about 10 minutes. So 10 minutes or maybe even a little bit less, like 8 minutes. Okay. All right. So Angel, what we're going to do is I'm going to get you to just read the title and the first paragraph, the introduction. Okay. So whenever you're ready, read the title and the introduction.
Okay, sir. Mountains of ice. The word iceberg derives from the Dutch word ijsberg, meaning ice mountain. Icebergs are sections of glaciers that have broken off during the warmer summer months and float freely in open water. Icebergs are typically found in open water, predominantly around Greenland and Antarctica. The characteristics of icebergs, their historical impact, and the methods we employ today to monitor them are important topics.
Okay, so Angel, quick question. When you read this introduction, what do you see inside of your head as the reader?
I think it says about the origin of the word of iceberg.
Don't think
Also,
don't think about what the author says. Think about what you picture, what you see inside of your head. So you should see a glacier, so like a mountain of ice, right? So you have your ocean here and you have your mountain
yes,
of ice, right? Okay.
yes.
All right. So you should obviously picture that. Okay. What else do you see when you read this?
There are mountains that are made by ice in the
Hmm.
ocean,
How?
and what?
How is it? How is it made, Angel? How is that mountain of
Okay.
ice made? It tells you in this paragraph, so you should see it. So how is that made?
Um, they float on the water,
Hmm.
and
Where do they come from?
yes, they derives from Dutch word iceberg.
Okay, that's where their name comes from, right? Where does the actual iceberg come from?
Mm.
Where does its journey
They,
begin?
yes, they are they melt in the summer,
Hmm. So
kind of
what?
up,
Okay,
and
so when you read that, Angel, like when you're reading that they break off during the summer, what you should be seeing is you should be seeing like a large ice continent, okay, and then you should be seeing like the sun shining,
yes,
the warm uh, summer sun shining and kind of melting the ice to make it fall off from the side of this ice continent. The ice continent. What's the name of the ice continent? It's Antarctica or Greenland, right? According to
yes,
the passage, Greenland is in the north,
really,
Antarctica is in the south, right?
yes, sir.
Okay, so it's really important, Angel, to be an active reader always when you're reading. That's the point I'm making here. And I'm not just speaking to you. Of course, I'm speaking to everybody who's watching. So when you read this introduction, what you should be seeing, Angel, is you should be seeing yourself maybe standing on top of the edge of Greenland, right? You're a tourist. You're maybe on one of those Alaska cruises. And you're visiting in the summer and you're watching these huge chunks of ice breaking away gloriously from the island of Greenland, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so make sure that you're seeing all of that information. Okay, a little bit more here, Angel. That's really important for everybody who's watching. The most important sentence of an essay or of a reading passage. A reading passage in the IELTS is basically an essay. It's a 700, 800 word essay. Okay. What's the most important sentence in an essay, aka a reading passage?
First sentence.
Good try, but wrong, Angel. It's not the first sentence. What is it? What sentence? Let me put it this way to you. What sentence, Angel, tells me what the whole passage is going to be about, the structure of the passage, what kind of points the reader is going to discuss? Which sentence tells me that?
Title?
No, the title gives me an overall idea, but this sentence gives me the detailed points that the essay or the passage will discuss. And the order, usually.
Last sentence of first paragraph.
Exactly. What is that called?
Thesis.
That's right. That's the thesis sentence, right? So here, can you read the thesis sentence?
Yes, sir. The methods we employ to monitor them are important topics.
Nope, you need to read the full sentence from the characteristics.
The characteristics of icebergs, their historical impact, and the methods we employ today to monitor them are important topics.
Okay, so that is the thesis sentence, right?
Yes, sir.
And that tells me that this author is going to first probably write about the characteristics of icebergs. Then the author is probably going to write about the historical impact in more detail. Then the author is going to write about the methods that we use to monitor the icebergs. Okay, so this basically is like a legend. It's like an index to the actual essay. It tells me where I need to look. So if I go to the questions, right, and one of the questions says, for example, that the name classification, number 4 here, the name classifications of icebergs derive from the Dutch language. Okay, so that has to do with naming the icebergs or giving the icebergs names. If I go back to the thesis and it says the characteristics of icebergs, their historical impact, I know that the name has to do with the characteristics of icebergs. So that question number 4, the answer should be somewhere in the beginning, in the first couple paragraphs, because the thesis is telling me that that's where that kind of information is found. Are you following me here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the thesis statement is super important. A lot of students don't pay enough attention to it, but the thesis statement gives you a lot of assistance into where to look for information, for what types of information. Okay, so pay a special attention to the thesis statement in your IELTS reading. Is that clear, Angel?
Yes, thank you so much for giving clue.
You're very welcome. Angel, do you have any questions about the reading? Or about IELTS reading in general?
No, I don't have any question, but it's the first time that I've heard that the last sentence of the first paragraph is, gives us many clues about the reading. I didn't try it. I haven't ever tried it.
Yeah, it's super important, and that's also important for your writing as well, right? So when you're doing your task 2 writing, your essay, you should have the same kind of sentence in your IELTS task 2. You should have a thesis sentence that does the same, which tells the reader what your body paragraphs will be about, right? So pay special attention to the thesis, and it's not always the last sentence of the introduction. It could be the last 2 sentences as well. So, but when you see it, you kind of know. You're like, oh, that's the thesis, because the author's telling you, like, oh, this is the topic, these are the points, right? So pay special attention to the thesis statement in the introduction. It will give you the main points of the essay, or in this case, the passage, and it will give you the structure. Okay. That's why in writing, interestingly, Angel, in writing writing task 2, a lot of people write like, this essay will discuss the main reasons and give. Have you seen that before when people do that in task 2, IELTS writing? Like, this essay will discuss the main points for iceberg. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so in literature, that's called an indirect thesis. An indirect thesis is when the author does not clearly tell the reader what the essay actually is. They just say what it will say. An indirect thesis is usually not a good thesis. Okay, it's usually a lower level thesis. That's why we tell students not to write like that. So it's better to actually say the reason for it is point 1 and then point 2.
Yeah.
And that's called an actual direct thesis. So that's the difference between what's called a direct and indirect thesis. When you're writing, you should use a direct thesis. And when you're doing your reading for the IELTS, and this is for everybody, you're going to notice that the thesis statements for almost all of the passages that you practice will be direct thesis statements, not indirect. Okay? So,
Okay.
all right. And when you're in university and you're writing essays for your classes, in most situations, your professors will tell you to write a direct thesis, not an indirect thesis. Okay, there are only few situations where indirect thesis is preferable. I'm not going to get into that right now, but in most cases, we want a direct thesis. We want to tell our reader what are the points that we're going to discuss and the order that we're going to discuss them. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, cool. Angel, thank you for reading and helping me to explain and express that point for all the viewers. So hang in there. We'll get to the questions soon, okay?
Thank you, sir, for giving me chance.
You're very
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Bye, Angel.
Bye.
All right, that was Angel. Let's move down the line here a little bit. Constellation, are you ready? We'll get into the reading a little bit. So again, that was a very important tip, everybody. Okay, thesis statements, extremely important. Visualizing, active reading, very important. All right. Okay. So, Constellation, yes. Okay, cool. All right, let's do it.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Constellation. How is the day going in Vietnam?
I was super busy, but right now I feel great because I have a chance to talk to you.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm happy to put a little spice in the day. That's great. All right. Constellation, let's get into this. So, probably not a lot of icebergs around Vietnam, right?
Yeah, it's super hot now.
They all melt. They all melt by the time they get there. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's do this. So once you see the paragraph on the screen, the reason icebergs exist. So this is body paragraph 1. Just go ahead and read that for me.
Okay. So the reason icebergs exist is because of the difference between the density of ice and the density of salt water. The density of ice is approximately 920 kilogram per cubic meter, while the density of salt water is approximately 1,025 kilograms per cubic meter. Because ice is less dense than water, it floats. However, because the difference in densities is so small, only about 10% of the icebergs is visible above the ocean surface. The rest of icebergs hides below the water. This is the origin of the familiar expression tip of the icebergs, used to describe the situation where only part of the problem is noticeable.
Okay, good. So, Constellation, when you read this body paragraph, what do you see?
So I can visualize in my mind that like maybe I'm under the water, but half underwater, but half on the surface, and I see half the icebergs, and I see the part of it under the water.
Cool. I like it. So you're kind of like swimming or somewhat submerged, and you can see the underwater part. I'm drawing a picture of you swimming in the water. There. So you can kind of see the top and the bottom of the iceberg. So you're picturing how it actually appears in the water. That's great. Constellation, that's fantastic. Read the next paragraph. Icebergs range in height.
Yes, so icebergs range in height from 1 meter all the way up to over 75 meters above sea level. The height measures the visible portion of the icebergs. The tallest icebergs may have a total height of over 650 meters, including their underwater portion. The largest ever recorded was 168 meters above the water, meaning the entire height of this floater was likely greater than 1,500 meters. For reference, that is twice the height of most skyscrapers.
Skyscrapers.
Yep, skyscrapers.
Try it one more time, Constellation. Skyscrapers.
Skyscrapers.
There you go. Good. All right. What do you see?
So I see a closer blocks of iceberg and is maybe touch the sky.
Ooh, I like it. Really nice. Nice visualization. I hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah, okay. So there's kind of like the clouds, and this iceberg is so big that it's really like an ice mountain. Like you're actually looking at a mountain of ice sitting in the water, right? It's so big. So it's absolutely ginormous, right?
Yep.
Okay. Ginormous is a funny word. It's a combination of gigantic and enormous together. Ginormous. Have you ever heard this before, this word, Constellation?
No, I haven't.
Ginormous. It's slang, but we use it for a very, very large object. It's ginormous. Okay, so it's touching the sky. Sure, that's great. Okay, very nice. Nice reading, nice visualization. That's exactly what you want to do when you're doing this. You might actually see a couple of skyscrapers stacked on top of each other beside the iceberg, or on the iceberg even. So that's really good. Any questions about the reading, Constellation?
So I have always had a question in my mind about the true false not given kind of question. So I don't know how it's not given. I cannot figure it out. Can you give me some tips?
Yes, I will actually get to those when we get to the yes, no, not given. So hang in there. And if you still have some questions, I will be looking for what you write in the chat, but I think it will all become clear once we talk about those questions, okay? So I'll explain it in more detail when we get there. We'll get there in like maybe 5 minutes, okay? 10 minutes. And then it'll make sense, okay?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I know a lot of people have questions with that, but there is a logical explanation for those. So you'll see that in a moment. Okay, Constellation?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Thanks for reading, and hang in there. Those are the first questions, so we'll get to them pretty quick here, okay?
Yep.
Okay. Bye, Constellation.
Goodbye, sir.
All right. Let's jump to the next person down the line. Lydia, are you ready? I used to see lots of volunteers. I'm not necessarily going in order, so don't worry if you're not right next after Lydia. You might still get a chance here. Okay, Lydia, if you're there, let me know. Constellation, good job. Absolutely, Angel, good job. Lydia says fire away. Okay, here we go. Hi, Lydia. How are you?
Hi, Mr. Eddie. I'm doing great. What about you?
I am doing quite well also. Thank you for asking. Okay, Lydia, let's keep this moving along. You should see the next paragraph coming up on your screen pretty quick here. Different sized icebergs have different name classifications. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, Mr. Adrian. Different size icebergs have different name classifications. The smallest icebergs are called brush ice. The next category up in size is called growlers. And the ones after that are called bergy bits. For whatever reason, after those three classes, the people in charge of naming the icebergs got a little less creative. The next classes simply range from small to very large. Icebergs can be massive objects. Very large icebergs can weigh more than 200,000 tons. The largest iceberg ever recorded was over 30,000 square kilometers in area. Again, for reference, that is approximate size of the country of Belgium.
Okay, very good. All right, Lydia, when you read this paragraph, what do you see?
Actually, I see there are three different types of, not three, but here based on the paragraph, there are three different sizes of icebergs. The first one is brush ice. It is the smallest one in size, and then it comes the growlers, and after that is bergy bits. So
And Lydia, when you picture the size of these, so let me ask you this, like the smallest iceberg called brash ice, okay? What do you picture? Like, what do you see as that small piece of ice? Like, what do we call, like, what do you see as the brash ice? What would somebody go, oh, look at that, it's brash ice?
maybe it is like only the peak of that iceberg is noticeable.
And like, how big would it be? Like, how big do you think it would be in the ocean? Like, in comparison to another object, what do you see? Do you think it's
Like
like
a
the size
small
of a... Okay, yeah, go ahead.
like a small spot or small size of that iceberg.
Like the size of a toaster, a microwave, or a car? What do you think? It doesn't
It
really
is
matter. Lydia, the trick is it doesn't really matter. It's up to your imagination.
actually it is like, yeah, I can say the size of a microwave, for example.
I have no idea, so maybe. You know what I see, Lydia? I see like an
What?
ice cube that I put in my drink. Brash ice, I think, is really small. It's like the size of an ice cube floating around in my drink, right? That would be like, ooh, look at that little cute little brash ice. It's a little ice cube in my drink. Okay. And then they get bigger and bigger. I don't know how big it is, right? I've never checked online. I don't know how big brash ice is, but you know, we can imagine whatever, right? And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you read this paragraph, right? How big is the last piece of ice that this paragraph is talking about? So the last piece of ice this paragraph is talking about, how big is it?
The last one is over 30,000 square kilometers in area, which is equivalent to the size of the country of Belgium.
Can you imagine, Lydia, a piece of ice floating in the ocean that's as big as the country of Belgium? That's pretty impressive, don't you think?
Yes, it is impressive.
Right? So what I would imagine if I were reading this body paragraph is I would literally imagine that I have my own country floating on the ocean. Okay, so here you are, Lydia, sitting on your own, very own country that's in the ocean. And you have your own country that's the size of Belgium. You even have like a flag, the flag of Lydia, and you're having an iced tea. And in your iced tea, you've got little bergy bit ice cubes floating around. Okay? So you're visualizing that. There you have a nice hat as well. Unfortunately, the bad news, Lydia, is your country's going to melt in the ocean. And then it'll get smaller and smaller. So, you know, you got to have fun with it while it lasts, right? But there you are. So you're on that. So you want to visualize that, right? You want to, and you know, it sounds kind of weird and funny to say these visualizations, but that's what actually really makes you an active reader, is being able to see the information like that. And then it becomes a lot more useful when you actually get to questions. You're able to digest and use the information a lot better. Okay, so one interesting trick that I'm showing you and everybody else with these little drawings and readings is that you're always included in what you see. So you should always be a part of it. You shouldn't just kind of see, you know, like this distant image, but you should see pictures that are close to you where you're involved with these pictures. Does that make sense, Lydia?
Yes, Mr. Adrian.
Okay. All right, Lydia, do you have any questions about the reading?
Actually, I have one simple question, but I remember that you answered that question to one of the students' doubts, but I would like to ask it again to make sure that if I'm correct or not. Mr. Adrian, do you remember the passage that you gave to us about Brexit and in Ireland? So I solved the part that is about filling in the blanks. While I was reading the sentence, I answered without even looking back at the passage, and it was actually correct. Like it didn't take few minutes, just few seconds, and it was correct. But then I asked myself to go back to the passage and start looking for the word. I couldn't find it, and I actually started thinking about it, which took around 20 minutes, and I got it wrong.
Yes.
So should I avoid looking back to the paragraph?
That's a really good question. Okay, so yes and no. Here's a better approach next time, right? So let's take what happened for you into the real exam, so the real test situation, right? In the real test situation, when you read the fill in the blank like that and you answer the fill in the blank and you're like, okay, I'm like 90% sure that that's the answer, because it feels like to me like what you're saying that you were quite sure when you put that first answer in there, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Anytime that you are quite sure in the reading passage that you have the correct answer, leave it, okay? If you have time at the end, and that's a big if you have time at the end to go back and double check answers, then check that answer. And you should always be checking answers that you're not 90% sure about. So there will be, from the 40 questions, there will probably be 1, 2, maybe 4 or 5 questions where you're like 60, 70% sure, or even less, like 50-50. Okay, those are the questions that you want to check first, and it's important to mark those. So in the computer-based exam, you have to write down the number of the question on your note paper, like write down, 27. I'm not sure on 27, so I'll come back and check this after I'm done. But you should not be spending more than 1 or 2 minutes to check an answer while you're doing it. You should always go to the next question, finish the reading, and then if you have time, go back to it. Okay? Because it's a horrible situation to change a correct answer to a wrong answer and waste a whole bunch of time on it, right? You don't want to do that. So when you're 90% sure or more, answer it, leave it, and then keep going. If you have time, come back and check, but only if you have time, okay? Does that...
Okay, Mr. Adrian.
That makes sense, right? And then you'll...
Yes, it is clear.
Okay, and then you'll minimize your error chance, okay? All right, so... So yeah, if you're quite sure, that happens. So Lidya, it's not just for you. It happens for everyone. I've even had that where I've been like, I've gotten the right answer, and then it took me a couple minutes to actually realize that, yeah, there is the right answer. It just takes a long time to find where it was exactly. So you have to be really careful with that, okay?
Okay, Mr. Adrian.
Okay, good question, Lidya. That's a really good question. Have a great rest of your day and hang in there for some questions coming up for this passage.
Thank you so much, for sure, Mr. Adrian. Thank you.
Bye, Lidya. All right, yeah, that was a great question. Yeah, if you're sure, don't second guess yourself. Just stick with it, okay? All right, Cahyani. Cahyani's got an exam coming up tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Let's give Cahyani a chance. Cahyani, are you ready? Let's give some cheers, some good luck to Cahyani. She's got her exam just around the corner, as I think many of you do. It's kind of an IELTS exam week coming up here around the globe, so let's give some help.
Hello, Adrian.
Hi, Cahyani. How are you?
I'm doing good, but I'm quite nervous right now because my exam in the day after tomorrow.
The day after tomorrow. Okay. Remember what I said yesterday, Cahyani. Don't be nervous.
Okay, sir.
Still the same advice.
And to be honest, I apply your recommendation, and I'm right now using mask as I'm outside right now.
Okay. All right. Cool. There you go. Yes, you're getting used to it. It's important to do that. Good. All right, Cahyani, you'll see the next paragraph up on the screen whenever you're ready. Go ahead and read that.
Okay. So, The most famous iceberg in history is undoubtedly the one which eventually sunk the English ship Titanic off the coast of Newfoundland in 1912. At that point in time, there was no central group which monitored iceberg activity. Ships relied on the outlooks to spot the iceberg. For the Titanic, the unfortunate attitude was that any iceberg big enough to do damage to the ship would be seen in time. This attitude was, of course, catastrophically wrong. The main reason it failed was the remarkable calmness of the water that ill-fated night. The easiest way to spot an iceberg from afar is to see waves crashing up against it. But on the night the Titanic sank, there was no such helpful waves. For all intents and purposes, the iceberg was invincible until it was too late. The captain swerved at the last minute, but as the side of the ship may have been fine, had it not been for the poorly designed watertight. Um, sorry, sir. I think okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Go
let
ahead.
me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct
okay.
it.
The
Yeah.
captain's okay. The captain swerved at the last minute, but as the side of the ship scraped across the iceberg, the hull of the ocean liner tore up. Things still may have been fine, had it not been for the poorly designed watertight compartments. It turns out that when too many compartments were affected, the water was simply able to spill over to all the other compartments. This was an engineering defect that contributed to the Titanic sinking.
Mm-hmm. Very good, Cahyani. I'm very, very happy that you were able to catch the mistake that you made there where you skipped a line, right? So you started reading here, the captain swerved at the last minute, but as the side of the ship, and then you skipped from ship to may have been fine, and you missed this line, scraped across the iceberg, but then you realized it and you went back. Why did you realize it, or how did you realize that you missed that line?
Because it looks like suspicious that I skipped this line. That's so fake.
Because it didn't make sense, right? So the information stopped making sense, which is what should happen, right? So when you're reading actively and you're digesting the information that you're reading, so you're actually seeing it, then you should catch that kind of a mistake because it shouldn't make sense. So that was good. It was good that you caught that. All right. So in this paragraph, the author is giving this instance of the Titanic, right? Why does the author do that, Cahyani? So here, a good question as an active reader, a good question that I would ask myself here, right, is why does the author give this paragraph about the Titanic?
Okay.
What do you think?
I think because to present how like the evidence of the iceberg that contributed the humankind activities like Titanic, like the incident of Titanic.
Yes, you're right, Cahyani. Let's say that a little bit simpler, okay? To show why icebergs are important for human life, right?
Yes.
So it's okay. And so exactly. So the author here is like, okay, you know, I'm telling you all this information about icebergs. I want you, the reader, to know why you should be concerned about icebergs. So even if you live in Vietnam, or even if you live in Indonesia or India, where you might not see a lot of icebergs because it's warmer, and you think, oh, I don't care about icebergs, right? But there comes that beautiful day, Cahyani, where you're going on an adventure. You go on an Alaska cruise, and you're like, hey, there's a big iceberg in front of the boat, everybody. Does everybody see that? Right? So suddenly it becomes very important, right, that what icebergs are. So it's telling the reader that, hey, you know, icebergs are, you know, important they exist and they do matter for people, right? And he gives or she gives the example of the Titanic. Why the Titanic?
Because this is like the legend incident over the past century.
Yeah, so the author expects that most readers will know about this very famous story, right? Okay.
Right.
So a good author is always creating empathy with the reader, right?
Yeah,
I think many people have kind of imagined, especially if you've seen the movie, and Cahyani, I know we talked about this before. I know you've seen Titanic a few times. So we all have kind of imagined how terrible it would be or how frightening it would be to be on that ship when that's happening. So to create empathy with the reader, right? And if you've seen the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and like I say, I just saw on Netflix the other day that they have it and they're promoting it. If you've ever seen the movie, in the movie, they show when the boat is sinking. Do you remember that part of the movie, Cahyani, the Titanic, where it actually hits the iceberg and starts sinking?
Yes, I do remember.
It's quite visual. It's quite amazing, right? I think they spent like $20-30 million just on that part of the movie.
Yeah.
And remember, it actually happened in the movie. They actually did a really good job to show the same situation that this author is describing, where it was a really calm night. Remember, like everybody was sleeping on the boat. It's super calm. There's no waves, and they can't see the iceberg, and it happens super suddenly. Do you remember that part in the movie?
Yeah, suddenly, yeah. That's kind of like I can remember as well.
Yeah, and it skims across the side of the boat and rips it open. And then I don't know if you remember that part of the movie, but I still do. I haven't seen the movie in many years, but I still remember that they show that part where the water is filling up in the boat and they're trying to close the doors to keep the water in one part of the ship, but the water keeps pushing through the doors. Do you remember that part of the movie?
Oh, yes, I do remember.
Right? So, and that actually seems like it's what really happened. Like that's what this author is talking about at the end here, where they say things may have been fine had it not been for the poorly designed watertight compartments. Okay. So again, very visual. And if you have seen that movie, if you have seen the Titanic, like you, Cahyani, then there is no reason that you should not be able to clearly understand this paragraph, even with not too much English, because it's basically like a part of that movie taken out, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, Cahyani, go ahead and read this last paragraph for us.
Okay. Okay, it's a bit delayed.
That's okay. It's coming.
Right? After the disaster of the Titanic, maritime authorities realized that a system needed to be put into place to monitor icebergs, so that such as a catastrophe would not be repeated again. By 1914, the International Ice Patrol (IIP) was formed. Their purpose was to track all of the relevant meteorological and oceanographical data, and to chart the movement of all major icebergs. Today, technology is used to track iceberg data. The Canadian Space Agency has multiple radar satellites which send microwaves of the ocean surface and record the reflection to track the movement of the icebergs. Maritime vessels have access to this information in real time, which allows them to know exactly where any local icebergs are at any moment, meaning that a repeat of the Titanic disaster is virtually impossible.
Okay, very nice. So, what does this conclusion aim to do? What does it aim to give to the reader?
This is kind of this paragraph is talk about the solution to avoid the second incident of Titanic.
Yeah, so it's basically giving us a peace of mind, like no need to worry about it. We're safe now, right? We have the technology to know where the icebergs are and we can avoid them. We don't need a lookout. Remember, it was, you said Outlook, and I was like, oh, no, that's Microsoft Office Outlook. No, this is Lookout, Cahyani. So we don't need a lookout to be on top of the ship in the crow's nest looking for icebergs, right? We don't have to worry about that kind of a situation. We've got technology that can track the icebergs, correct?
Correct, yeah, all is well.
All is well, yes, as long as those satellites stay in space. All right. Okay, Cahyani, thank you so much for reading the last couple paragraphs. And again, the best of luck on your upcoming test. Cahyani, don't stress about it. Just be you, okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. Fingers
Okay.
crossed.
Just a second.
All right.
Thank you, Adrian.
Bye, Cahyani.
Bye.
All right, that was Cahyani. Okay. Let's get Phuong's help here with some true, false, not given. Phuong, are you ready? Cruising along nicely, students. We're going to get into the questions now. Great work, Cahyani. Great work, everybody, so far. Nice support from your peers with the thumbs up. That's fantastic. Okay, here we go. Phuong, are you there? It sounds like you picked up, but I can't hear you. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'm not sure what's going on, Phuong. Maybe it's a network or connection error there. I'm going to keep going down the line, Phuong, but I'll circle back to you if I have the chance. Domenico, are you there? We've got lots of students in today, premium students, premium members who are premium students. Are you ready? Domenico. If you're there, let me know. Domenico says absolutely. I don't see you in the chat, Domenico, but you are there. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Domenico. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, although it's a scorching summer day and I feel like I'm baking in an oven. Moreover, it must be about 30 degrees outside and people are all flocking to the beach for a refreshing swim, you know. I can't feel myself away from my desk.
So what you're telling me then, Domenico, is you're kind of melting in the sun like an iceberg.
Yeah, it's...
Right?
Yes. I feel like I'm an iceberg. See, given icebergs are formed from the process of glaciers melting as the surface of the sea becomes warmer. So I feel like I'm a glacier melting, and I'm a glacier melting and breaking away.
That's there. You see,
well,
I can
breaking it into pieces.
Right? All right. Well, Domenico, help me out with some of these yes, no, not given questions, okay? We're going to do these together and show everybody how to do these. I think it was Constellashon who had the question about this type of question, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to help everybody understand these a little bit better. Okay. So Domenico, when you're ready, just read this question all the way from the top. So do the following statements agree with? So read from there.
So, do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in the reading passage 1? So, in box 1 to 5 on your answer sheet, write yes or no given. Okay. Icebergs are sections of glaciers.
Domenico, just a second. No, I actually do want you to read the yes if the statement agrees. It's important. There's a reason. I'm going to explain after.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, if the statement agrees with the claims of the writer. No, if the statement contradicts the claims of the writer. Not given. If it is possible to say what the writer thinks about this.
Yeah. So if it is impossible to say. Yeah.
Impossible. Sorry, impossible.
Okay, good. Now read number 1.
Number 1. Icebergs are sections of glaciers that have broken off in the winter months.
Okay, so the first step is to figure out if it's given or not given. Okay, so step 1, figure out if it's given or not given, right? How do we figure that out, Domenico? Figure out if it is given or not given. What's the easiest way to figure out if information is given or not given?
Well, first of all, you need to visualize what you read in the passage.
Yeah. Ask yourself a question.
As far as I can remember, so icebergs are sections of glaciers that have broken off as well during summertime. During summertime. So they tend to break off during summer times. So winter, it's not possible.
Yeah, it's less possible for sure, right? Exactly. Yeah. So to figure out if the information like this number 1 is given or not given, we have to first figure out, is it important? So if you are the author and you're writing about icebergs, would you include the information about when glaciers break off or when they start to become these ice mountains?
Yeah,
because
I would include the information. I would include the information because
it's important. It's how they're made, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's given because it's important. Exactly.
Yeah.
So once I can figure out that it's important, then I can figure out if it's given or not given according to the author, right? And in this case, as you cleverly said, it's given and it's false, or it's a no in this case, not false, but no.
because
it's
icebergs break off the glaciers as the surface of the sea becomes warmer. So at the start of spring and following summer.
Yeah, exactly. So icebergs break off in the warm summer months. Exactly. So the two questions, right? So the best way to tackle these yes, no, not given, or true, false, not given is basically two questions. Is it important? If it's important, if it's not too much detail or not off topic, then it's most likely given. Okay.
Yeah, it's important because you need to figure out how icebergs are formed.
Yeah, exactly. Let's try that with the second one, right? Go ahead and read number 2.
Icebergs exist because of the different densities of ice and salt water. Yes.
Is it important? So let's figure out if it's given or not given.
Yes, that's important. That's because they float across the surface of the sea.
So it's important. So it's going to be given, right? Is it true? According to this author, would the author agree in this passage that they exist because there's a different density, different thickness, let's say, of the ice versus salt water? Is that true?
Yeah, that's true because they well, as the glacier, as the temperature decreases, the water tend to release salt into the sea. So it becomes
less dense.
Less dense. It becomes less dense. So it tends to float across the sea, across the surface of the sea.
Exactly. So
and it is transported by the currents.
Now, careful, Domenico. So, so for instance, let's do this. Okay, I'm gonna put an invisible question 2b in here. So icebergs are transported across the Atlantic Ocean by ocean currents. Okay, so let's for fun, let's imagine that we have another statement here. Icebergs are transported across the Atlantic Ocean by ocean currents. Okay, so if we had this sentence here, right? Would this be yes, no, or not given?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it's given because the information reported in the passage says.
It's not. It's not, though. I'm going to stop you, Domenico. I'm going to stop you right there.
What?
And the reason why is because you're making a very classic mistake in the reading strategy where you're including your own information. So you're correct.
All right.
So you're correct. This is true, right? It does happen, and ocean currents do transport it. So this is true, but this would be not given. The author does not talk about how they move, right? So I think this is where Constellation was confused. Like, when is it a not given, right? A not given is, it could be false or it could be true. It doesn't matter if we don't know according to the author. If the author does not discuss it, does not mention it, and we don't know about it, then it has to be a not given. So for somebody like you, Domenico, who knows a lot about marine biology, and I'm sure because of that you've learned a lot about icebergs and global warming, you have to be very careful with this kind of passage to only rely on what the author includes in the passage. If you include your own knowledge, you can get some of these wrong. So you have to be really careful, okay? It's a not given, even if it's true. It's a not given if it's not discussed by the author, okay?
Yeah, I gotcha.
All right. So on the IELTS, be really careful about that, okay, Domenico?
Gotcha.
All right.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, Domenico, thank you so much for helping me with those questions.
Adrian.
All right, and have a great rest of your day. Have a cold iced tea or something. Stop melting. Stop melting over there in your office chair. Turn on the air conditioning. Get a fan, Domenico. All right, Domenico, have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
We'll chat again.
And a pleasant rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Bye, Domenico. All right, that was Domenico. Okay, Tatiana, are you ready? Here we go. Okay, so Constellation, I hope that made sense. Okay, it's not given. All right, we did not see or we did not visualize the ocean currents moving icebergs across the Atlantic. Okay, all right, even though it's true. Hi, Tatiana. I can't hear you, even though it sounds like I should be able to, because I can hear static on your end. Maybe check your microphone settings, Tatiana, because it sounds like you picked up, and it sounds like I should be able to hear you, but I can't. So check out what's going on, okay? All right. Let's see who else is in here. So members get first priority. If you're a member, let me know, Jenny. Okay. Phuong, I know for sure that you are. So we'll give Phuong a chance here. Phuong, are you ready? Okay. So this is a members chat class, everybody. So members get first chance at the volunteering, but you can just hang in there. Okay. All right, let's try this. I think Phuong reconnected, maybe.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Phuong. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm sorry, sir, because the internet connection at the weekend is not good, so I'm out of the base, so I can't hear you, sir.
I will speak up. Can you hear me now? Are you okay?
Yes, I can hear you now, sir.
Okay. All right. No worries, Phuong. We're able to connect now. So let's jump to number 3. Can you read number 3 for me, please?
Yes, sir. 90% of the iceberg is hidden below the water.
Okay. Is it important to know how much of the iceberg is hidden below the water?
I think it's important, sir.
So it's given, right? Yeah, it's important because it's why icebergs are so dangerous. Is it true, according to the author, that 90% of the iceberg is hidden below the water?
I remember just we can see just 10% above the water, so I think it's true, sir.
Yeah. So that's the paraphrasing, absolutely. And you're always looking for that paraphrasing. So 10% above the water is equal to 90% below the water. Would you agree?
I read.
All right. Your math teacher would be proud of you at this point. Well, he'd be like, yes, you should agree. Okay. All right. So 90% below the water. Absolutely. Okay. So therefore, the answer is yes. Okay. That's how these true, false, not givens work. They generally will not have the exact same words or the exact same phrase. They're going to paraphrase. That's why skimming and scanning is so difficult for these questions. So here it's yes. Okay. Let's go to number 4. Go ahead and read that one.
Okay, sir. The name classifications of icebergs derived from the Dutch language.
Okay. Is it important where the name classifications comes from?
I think it's not important, sir.
Why not?
Because we just call it the iceberg, so we not need to mention about its origins.
Okay, good for you. So you're going to say not given and then go on, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you're correct. This is a tricky one, and the questions get more and more challenging or tricky because they're looking for Band 8, Band 9 comprehension, of course, right? Good for you. It does talk about the Dutch language. It does say that the word ijsberg comes from the Dutch language, meaning iceberg. But then the name classifications, they don't tell us where those names come from, and they definitely sound more English. Do you remember what the name classifications are, some of them?
I cannot remember, sir.
I think it was Lydia that was reading that part. Remember I even said like the smallest ones are little ice cubes in my drink? They're called Bergy bits, brash ice. Those little tiny ones, brash ice, Bergy bits, those ones, right? And then it doesn't tell us where those come from. All right. Okay. Anyway, the most important point here, Phuong, is you got it. It doesn't matter where those name classifications come from. Okay. Number 5. Go ahead and read that one.
Okay, sir. Some icebergs can be the size of a country.
Is that important to know?
I think it is important, sir.
Yeah, of course, right? Size matters with icebergs. Okay, absolutely. So it's given. Okay, and is it true, according to the author, that some icebergs can be the size of a country?
Like the size of Belgium.
So then the answer must be?
True.
And yeah, and of course in the IELTS, especially if you're doing the paper-based version, pay attention. Make sure you write yes, not true. Okay, candidates do that. They practice so much at home that they do a lot of true, false, not given, and then they get to the exam, and instead of writing yes or no, they write true or false, and they get it wrong, which is terrible. So be careful about that. It happens. Okay, let's jump to this filling in the blank. The sinking of the Titanic. Go ahead and keep reading, Phuong. The sinking of the Titanic.
Okay, sir. The sinking of the Titanic, because there were no international groups which monitored icebergs in 1912, it was the sole responsibility of the something to make sure there were no icebergs in the ship path.
Okay, whose responsibility was it? What was that word in the passage that goes here?
I think it's the responsibility of the crew or the captain.
The crew or the captain? Okay. It's neither. It's the one that I kind of made a joke of when Cahyani was reading it, because Cahyani read it like the email server Outlook. So that's how Cahyani read it, but it's not an Outlook. It's actually called a...
Lookout.
It's called a lookout. Yes, exactly. Cahyani, it's not an Outlook, although Microsoft, I'm sure, is very happy about the advertising plug. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so yeah, Phuong, it's the lookout. So you're close, crew captain, but the correct word here is lookout. That's the actual name of that person on the ship. They're called the lookout. A lookout is not just for boats, by the way, everybody. So Phuong, it's not just a word for boats. If you're playing a game and somebody is trying to come into your part of the playing field, then you have a lookout. So a person that's looking for the enemy or looking for the other team's movement, it's also called a lookout. So somebody who's kind of like a spy, they're a lookout. Okay. All right. Keep reading a little bit more here, Phuong. The chief reason.
Okay, sir. The chief reasons the icebergs wasn't detected was the something of the sea that night.
Okay, what do you think is the correct word that comes there? What is the sea?
The peaceful of the sea.
The peacefulness?
The
Okay.
calmness.
Yeah, there you go. See, you realize that, okay, you didn't read the word peacefulness. It wasn't there. But the word calmness is there. The calmness of the sea that night. Exactly. Okay, I don't want to spoil the fun for the rest of the questions, so I'm going to leave the rest for you, Phuong, and for everybody watching. Phuong, thank you so much for helping me with these. I hope you have a great rest of the night.
Have a great day, sir. Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you. Bye, Phuong. All right, everybody. So that's all the time we have for questions right now. But again, you can find a lot more help on the website by just joining the premium version by clicking that button right behind my head. Thank you so much to all of our volunteers. Tatiana, I won't forget that you tried to volunteer, and I know we had a couple other people trying to volunteer who weren't successful this time. So hang in there for tomorrow's class, and I will circle back to you, especially if you remind me. Okay. For homework, finish the rest of these. So questions 8 to 13. You can watch the video again to see them. Yeah, you can see them clearly. Send me those answers, and then I will include the answer key in an email response. So just send those answers to me to these email addresses, and then I will gladly let you know whether you got them correct or not. Coming up in about half an hour from now, 32 minutes to be precise, we've got listening, parts 1 and parts 2 for this. So make sure to come back. That will be a subscribers chat class. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Carolina, for moderating. aehelp.com, gieltshelp.com for lots more reading passages, lots more strategies, and lots more help. Have a great break, everybody. Come back in 30 minutes and join me for listening. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out for now from Victoria, and I will be back soon. Goodbye.